Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
And we are
the FAIRtax guys.
Again, coming to you from Big Daddy Studios in Gainesville, Florida. We're live on Facebook, or not live, this is a pre-recorded version of it, so hopefully you can, of course, it's going to stream on Facebook as if it were live, but we're recording it a week ahead of time.
That's right. So if you're watching this on Facebook, type in your comments. The comments will be live.
Comments are live. We'll be there. Randy will be there, so you can still live comments on Facebook. And again, we urge you to check out Excluded, X-C-L-U-D-E-D, excluded.tv, so you can see not only the FAIRtax guys, but a lot of other good stuff that the major social media platforms don't want you to see, and they have excluded from their platform.
Yep.
So that's a $30 a year subscription, a little over $2 a month to see stuff that the big companies want to hide from you. Well worth it. And hopefully you'll check out FAIRtax Power Radio on excluded.tv.
FAIRtax Power Radio, John Martin has a program there, Ward Scott has a program there. You know, they are just about daily. Mm-hmm. So and you can watch it whenever you want, you know, at your leisure. You can put it up on your TV at home if you have one of those devices and watch it, big screen TV. So anyways, yeah, it's a good website.
How cool that is. As we always do, we remind you that our email address is thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. We encourage people to send us questions about the FAIRtax, and if it's a really good one, we will tackle it right here on FAIRtax Power Radio like we did last week with John Roman's question. Yep. We've seen some other stuff come through there, and we'd certainly like to, if you've got comments, if you've got concerns about the FAIRtax, that if you ask us a stumper too, there's a lot of stuff that we'll blow our horn a little bit. There's a lot of stuff that we do know about the FAIRtax. Yeah. But, if there's something that we don't know an exact answer to, we've got lots of resources. Randy Fisher, of course, is a very good source for information. Karen Walby, an economist, a PhD economist, if you want about how the economic impacts of the FAIRtax is going to be. We have got some heavy-duty research and heavy-duty resources at our disposal, and we can and will get you an answer to your FAIRtax questions.
Yeah, we're not tax experts, all right? I'm a retired science teacher. Bob is a radio guy and computer programmer and so forth, but we both are passionate about the FAIRtax.
I can understand the FAIRtax. I do not need, as you've got called up on your computer there, I do not need a business that is going to help me with my tax problems, because with the FAIRtax, you don't have any. You just pay it when you buy stuff at the cash register, and that's it. And the FAIRtax is anonymous. That's beautiful, because the FAIRtax, the retailer knows how much was collected. It has no clue how much it got for me or how much it got for you or how much it got from anybody.
Yeah.
And it's none of the government's business anymore how much money you make, where you make it, how you make it, anything like that. You just simply pay your taxes at the cash register and you're done with it. And I hate to put the U.S. Tax Shield and other places like that out of business, but there will be no longer need for tax problem resolution services, because there will be no tax problems, at least not at the individual level.
How do you have problems with a sales tax? You go to the store, you buy something, the sales tax is included in the price of the product, you pay for it, you walk out the door, you're done. You've done your due diligence. That's all you've done. And so you don't, it's so simple, as we've talked about time and time again. It's so simple. It is, the simplicity is the key, is one of the keys of.
And the beauty of it.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm still recovering here, but anyways, the simplicity is extremely important. That's why we don't want lobbyists involved. We handled a question. We're going to do some frequently asked questions, and we handled one last week about, well, why don't they just exempt food and medicine and so forth? And that would get the lobbyists would love that idea, because they get to go to work all over again. All right?
How do you define what medicine is? You see those little ads on things, and if you read the fine print at the bottom of the ad, these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, and it's not this product is not intended to cure any disease. Is that medicine?
Yeah.
I don't know. So why introduce that kind of complexity into the tax system?
The FAIRtax is very simple. 45 of the 50 states have a sales tax now. There's not a lot of hoopla about them, okay? They're very straightforward, very simple. That's what the FAIRtax is. Get rid of the income tax, get rid of the IRS, get rid of all the compliance problems with the income tax. Businesses find it easier to do business. They do more business. They create jobs. All right. In a nutshell, that's what the FAIRtax is. And just for good measure, to make sure that you're not taxed on the basic necessities, we have this thing called the Prebate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. A family of four,
in depth,
2 adults, 2 kids, would get $631 a month direct deposited into their checking account, or I imagine they might send out some paper checks, but it's distributed the same way Social Security would be. That is how much money that is collected from you at the cash register that you do not owe, and it's just given back to you. So check out the Prebate. That's what really makes the FAIRtax thing. But Ron,
if you have questions about the Prebate, go back a couple of episodes when we spent the entire episode on the Prebate, because Bob created a great PowerPoint. And I'll say again, it was one of the best examples of explaining the Prebate that I've seen in doing this for about 10 years. It's really good. I really enjoyed that. And he did a great job with that PowerPoint. So I would go back a couple of weeks, look at that. We covered the Prebate from beginning to end in that episode, and I think you'll have a better understanding of the Prebate and how important it is and how simple it is.
Thank you much. But I tell you what, Ron, if we want to put all these tax problem resolution people and the tax preparation folks out of business, that's not fair. What are those people going to do when we pass the FAIRtax?
Well, it's like the same thing about the IRS. You're going to put all those people in the IRS out of business?
There are going to be so many new jobs in this country when the FAIRtax is law that those folks will have no problem whatsoever.
Look at the people that make the tax software that you and I use.
Retire. Yes.
Yep. So the tax software that we use to do our taxes every year, they're into other things. They give loans, they do this and so forth. They're already branching out. Whatever company, like this one here that helps you resolve tax problems, that's not the only thing they do. That's a portion of their program.
Yeah, that's a point that Jade Wally made one time when we were asking him, and he was saying, well, CPAs won't like the FAIRtax. It'll put them all out of business. And Jade says, no way. There's a lot of other stuff that those folks do for their clients. In a lot of cases, they would rather be doing the other stuff than being, slugging through the tax code.
That's right.
So that works. But let's go to the FAQs here at FAIRtax.org. We're going to answer some questions about the FAIRtax. And again, if you want to follow along at home, www.fairtax.org, and in the little banner menu across the top, you'll see FAQs. You open that up. There are a lot of good questions there, a lot more than we're going to be able to get to on this one episode of FAIRtax Power Radio. But we want to hit on some of the good ones. How is the Social Security system affected? That is something that a lot of people ask about the FAIRtax.
Really important.
How is it going to affect Social Security? The answer is the operation of Social Security is not affected at all. It will continue to operate just like it is. Employers will continue to report wages to the Social Security Administration for the purpose of, determining what your benefits are going to be. But they will no longer have to report anything to the IRS because there will be no more IRS.
That's right.
But the big thing about Social Security is it changes the way the system is funded. It doesn't change the way the system works.
And this is of critical importance because right now, the way Social Security and Medicare are funded is there is the payroll withholding from people who get paychecks. Okay.
Yeah, those are the only people that are supporting the system. If you work a job for wages and you get a W-2 at the end of the year, you get your payroll taxes withheld. If you make your money, with investments or some other way that's not working for wages or working for a salary, you are not charged that payroll tax. You are not supporting the system. And those are some of the wealthiest people in the country.
That's right. If you're a wealthy person with investments here and there and so forth, you're not paying Social Security. Well, Social Security has been around for a long time. It's something that the American people like. All right, they like that security that helps them out when they retire and so forth. So it's something that all Americans should support. And I think most people agree with that. Well, right now, that's not happening. All right, people with paychecks. Now, there's a lot of people that are getting paychecks and are making the payroll withholding. But how about if we have a tax system in which everybody supports Social Security and Medicare just by buying something, for instance?
Yes, people who buy Learjets will now be supporting the FAIRtax, or supporting Social Security with the FAIRtax.
Social Security is going to be on a much more secure financial foundation. I mean, you hear all the time, Social Security is going to run out of money in 20 this or 20 that or something, you know, and then Congress does something. Under the current system, it's going to be a mess here if we get rid of the income tax and we have a system in which everybody supports Social Security simply by buying something, going to the store and buying something, or writing a check for a service, like the electrician came and did an upgrade on your, you know, added something or something. You write the check to the electrician. That includes the fair tax, which includes the support for the Social Security and Medicare. Because written in, again, we'll remind you, the fair tax bill is only about 130 pages long. And written in there is a portion that says a certain percentage, is about 35% of the proceeds of the fair tax must go to Social Security and Medicare. Must go. So that means every time somebody makes a purchase in this country, all right, part of the tax that was collected on that has to go to Social Security and Medicare. That's a much better financial foundation than what we have now. It's a whole lot better.
I'm saying, this goes for Medicare as well as Social Security. You got payroll taxes that support both of those programs. Those payroll taxes go away, and do not be fooled, folks, by the folks that will say, well, if fair tax gets rid of those taxes, then those programs fold. Yeah. No, they don't.
Yeah, we remember hearing a guy trying to tell people that. Yeah. He was trying to scare people, and that the fair tax would eliminate Social Security and Medicare, and you'd have to buy your own insurance. That's just a downright lie. There's just no way around it. So that's not care. Fair tax will put Social Security and Medicare on a better financial basis. It will protect those programs, so they will be there.
So it does not change the way the programs function. It simply changes the way the programs are funded and puts it on a wider, more stable tax base to do that. So
yeah, again, if somebody if there's a question about how does the fair tax affect Social Security reform, it doesn't. All right, reform of the Social Security system is another issue. All right, just like how Congress spends its money, that's another issue. The fair tax is the issue of how Congress gets its money, all right? How the government is funded. That's it. The other stuff has to be dealt with in other parts of Congress and so forth. So, yeah, so let's keep it simple here. The fair tax is only about revenue to the federal government.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that the fair tax bill is like 133 pages long. It does not take 133 pages to describe how the fair tax works. A lot of those 133 pages are references to current tax code that will be repealed. So when the fair tax passes, the statutory authority to collect an income tax goes away. And this kind of belongs up to this next question I wanted to bring in. Is there any provision in the fair tax to prevent both an income tax and a sales tax?
Yes.
So I say when the fair tax passes, a lot of that 133 pages repeals current statutory authority to collect an income tax. Right. Constitutionally, you can't change the Constitution by an act of Congress.
Right.
So if you pass, when the fair tax passes, the statutory authority to collect an income tax goes away and would have to be repassed if the government were going to try to have a sales tax and an income tax. But constitutionally, as long as the 16th Amendment is still in place, it is still constitutionally permissible for the Congress to do that. So that is why the permanent implementation of the fair tax is contingent upon the repeal of the 16th Amendment. And the normal constitutional process, amendment process, allows 7 years.
Up to 7 years.
Up to 7 years. Yeah. If you can't if something gets put out there and it's not ratified within 7 years, then that proposal dies.
Yep.
But so the fair tax says, all right, when we implement the fair tax, if the 16th Amendment is still around 7 years from now, i.e. at the expiration of the normal constitutional amendment process, then the fair tax goes away and you'll get your income tax back.
Yeah.
So for those 7 years, it would be constitutionally possible to have both, even though it would require that the Congress will repass all the statutory authority to do an income tax and reset up the IRS and all that stuff like that. But after 7 years, or as soon as the 16th Amendment is repealed, then the constitutional provision for an income tax goes away.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
All right. Do you think it's going to take 7 years to repeal the 16th Amendment?
I think it'll take closer to 7 months. Yeah. Once people realize what the fair tax, people are just stuck in this box of thinking about the income tax. You bring home your paycheck, you look at your stub, you don't look at the gross amount, which is what you actually make. You look down at the bottom and the net amount, okay, I made X number of dollars this week, and they are so used to thinking that that X number of dollars that's their net amount is their paycheck. They don't realize that the entire gross amount is what you have earned, and a lot of the difference between the gross amount and the net amount is federal withholding for income tax and the federal payroll tax, as we mentioned earlier, for Social Security and Medicare. You take that withholding away, you take those payroll taxes away, and people's paychecks are going to be a lot bigger, and it's not going to cost the employer another dime. You don't actually get a raise, you just get to keep more of what you earned to begin with. And when people see how much bigger their paychecks are going to be and how much simpler it's going to be, that you no longer have to keep records for things, you no longer have to file income tax returns, it's no longer the government's business how much money you make, people are going to like that. And I guarantee that any politician that tries to put the income tax back in like that will be voted out at the next election, no questions asked.
You know,
so
this
there's
paycheck
the answer to your question.
This paycheck thing is a good idea. We ought to do an episode in which we show the pay stubs for, you know, the current income tax and head of household.
We've done that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you go back to our archives there, you'll find an episode not too long ago in which we actually did that on one of our episodes. We had the pay stub for a single person right now. They're earning a certain amount of money. And single person with the withholding for Social Security, Medicare, and income tax. And then head of household. And then the pay stub for the fair tax. And of course, the pay stub for the fair tax is almost unnecessary because this is what you earn, this is what you get. It's that simple.
That's it. Now, another provision of the fair tax is that business-to-business transactions are not taxed. The fair tax is a retail consumption tax paid by the retail consumer of new goods and services, you know, at the retail level. So if you're in a wholesale business, if you're selling plywood to, you know, Jack Shack's corporation so they can build their sheds, that is not taxed. So since business purchases are not taxable, how does the fair tax keep individuals from pretending to have a business so that they can buy things tax-free? That's a good question.
Who collects the sales tax right now in the states?
Well, the state sales tax, state departments of revenue. In Florida, it's the Florida Department of Revenue.
Yep, and that's going to be the same thing. That's going to be the same agencies collecting the fair tax. We're not going to have a national sales tax agency that puts its fingers out to all the businesses. No. The states are going to collect the sales tax because 45 of the 50 of them are already collecting the sales tax. They know how to do it. And they also know how to take care of fraud, all right? The states have been doing this for decades. Somebody sets up a business for the purpose of scamming the government, you know, because they want to get tax-free purchases and so forth. That's only going to work so long. If they're not sending in their revenue, you know, their statement at the end of the year on their revenues and so forth, if everything doesn't match up, the state comes down on them.
Yeah, and if you've got a real business, you've got a business license, so they know who you are. You cannot do this under the radar.
Yeah.
Just incorporate on paper and then say, all right, I'm a business. Everything I buy is you know, for my business.
So it is the states that will be collecting the sales tax. It is the states that will be enforcing it and fighting fraud, just like they're doing now, okay? And the states are very good at this. If you're trying to scam your state right now by claiming that you're a business when you're not, I don't want to be in your shoes when the state comes down on you, because they come down hard. Again, the states like Florida that have a sales tax and no income tax, they protect their sales tax. It's a big deal, you know, states like Florida, Texas, and Tennessee, and the others. So, no, it's not going to be that easy. You're not going to have millions of people pretending to be businesses and getting away with it, because it's not going to be the federal government that comes after them. It's going to be the individual state governments that come after them. They already know how to do it, and they know how to come down on these people.
Yeah, so once you have a business, then the state knows who you are, because you've got to register your business with the state. And they say, all right, if you've got this business, then all right, we're going to expect that you will make a profit, and we're going to expect you, if you're in the retail business you claim to, then they're going to get you. So the states have a way to deal with this. It's going to be very, very difficult to set up some kind of scam business and try to scam the system by claiming you're a business when you're not.
No.
Because there are a lot of things that businesses have to do that individuals don't.
You know, and I imagine a few people will try this, and a few people are going to go to court and end up in behind bars. And
book them, Dino. We'll get you. Oh, I'm dating myself with that one for sure.
Yeah, book them down.
Yeah. That's an old Hawaii Five-0 reference for those of you that have not watched that original show. Here's another one that we get on occasion. In fact, we touched on this a little bit last time. I know the fair tax rate is 23% when compared to current income taxes. What will the rate of the sales tax be at the retail counter? Now, there's kind of a couple of ways to do this. We say that the fair tax is 23%. Meaning if you pick up an item off the shelf with a $100 price tag, 23 of those $100 is fair tax. Yep. So we look at that and say, well, 23% of the price you paid is fair tax. Therefore, the fair tax is a 23% rate. That is inclusive.
Right.
But some people will look at that and say, wait a minute, you're taking a $77 item and you're adding $23 worth of tax to it. That's 30%.
Oh, my gosh.
But it's the same $23.
Oh, yeah, but what's the dollar amount? Is that no? All right, that's an argument for the case of arguing, okay? It's still $23 whether you call it 23% inclusive or 30% exclusive. It's still the same amount of money. It's $23 for a $100 included in a $100 item, okay? So, yeah, don't be fooled by that. Anybody that tries to say, oh, well, it's not really 23%, it's 30%, they don't know what they're talking about. And they're purposely trying to confuse the system and make it sound more complicated than it is. It's not. It's not a big deal. Let's do it with our income tax. Yep. If you and I used this in the last episode. Let's say you get a job at $50,000 a year. Now, I think the tax rate at that is like 25%. Let's say it's 25%. So that's like $12,500, okay? That $12,000 is taken out. You take home $37,500. Mm-hmm. So is your tax rate really 25%, or is it more like 33%? Okay? Is it 25% inclusive? Your salary includes the income tax? Or is it 30%, 33% exclusive because, well, I'm only taking home $37,500 and I'm sending $12,500 to the federal government. That's 33% of what I'm making. Okay. Well, it's the same. It's still the same amount of money, no matter what you want to call it. Okay. So don't fall prey to that argument. That is just people trying to confuse the system and make a simple system look complicated. It's not. It's the fair tax. It's simple.
Yeah, and remember, if you're looking at a 23% income tax, you would have to earn $130 to have $100 to spend, because they get that withholding and all that other stuff away from you.
Yep.
So you'd have to earn $130 in order to spend $100. But if you spend that same $100 as a sales tax and you pay the same $30 worth of tax, same difference.
Yep.
So that's how that works. Again, so don't let folks fool you into thinking, oh, the fair tax folks are lying. It's they're claiming 23, it's actually 30. I'll tell you straight to your face, it is a 30% tax if you look at it the way your normal sales taxes are calculated. So $23 worth of tax on a $77 item, I will admit, is 30%. But it's also $23 out of $100 spent is 23% that way. Yep. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. It's the same tax. So don't let that red herring mess you up.
Yeah. There's a good one that actually refers back to the webinar that took place a couple of weeks ago. What will we experience in the transition from the income tax to the fair tax?
Yeah, that was Jade Wally's entire presentation on the webinar last time, so check that out if you can.
If you didn't tune in live to that webinar, okay, you can see it. You can go to the Florida Fair Tax website, flfairtax.org, And there's a link on there for the webinars and the video of that. Now, I will warn you, it was a brand new platform, all right? And I was running the webinar and Jade was the presenter and so forth. And it was a brand new platform. We had practiced several times. I made a couple of screw-ups, but the whole thing there, and Jade is really knowledgeable, all right? Because as he explained to us, we interviewed him earlier this year, wasn't it? Yeah. And he says, CPAs are trained to be skeptical. So when I learned about the FAIRtax, I was very skeptical. How could it be this simple and be this good? So he read everything. I mean, he read the books. He read the legislation. He read the research. I mean, he actually read the research and so forth, not just the executive summary. And he concluded, this really is a good deal. This really is a good thing for the country. And that's when he became a staunch FAIRtax supporter. So being a CPA with a Big Four company, he knows what he's talking about. So go to flfairtax.org, look for the webinars, and look for the webinar of September 20th. I believe that was the date. And the whole webinar, the presentation is about how the transition will take place. And he goes through it in chapter and verse. So,
got time for one more quick question. How does the FAIRtax affect government spending? It doesn't.
Doesn't? No.
It is a revenue bill. It raises the same amount of revenue for the government that the income tax does. Now, the fact that the government continues to spend a lot more than they're actually taking in, that is something we're going to have to deal with, that we the people are going to have to rise up and make them quit doing that one of these days. But the FAIRtax does not address how it's spent. It does not address anybody's spending priority. It does not affect do not favor the left's priorities over the right's or vice versa. It just raises money for the federal government, period.
Think about it this way. Right now, Congress spends a lot of time. I mean, as we usually do an update on Congress.gov on how many proposals there are. In last episode, there was almost 1,600 proposals to change the tax code. Congress spends a lot of time messing around with the tax code and messing around with how they spend money. The FAIRtax takes half of that out of their hands. The FAIRtax is simple, and it takes the Congress demagoguing the whole thing. It's gone. All right. So the Congress can now spend, under the FAIRtax, can now spend all their time on how they spend the people's money. And we can pay a lot more attention to Congress on how they spend the people's money, because the revenue side of it is simple and it's out of their hands. So it'll be a lot easier to keep track of Congress and some of their foolish spending habits and so forth when we pass the FAIRtax.
Of course, with the FAIRtax, they're going to have a lot more money to spend because the economic growth, I mean, we don't have time to get into this, but the economic growth that the FAIRtax is going to trigger is going to be unbelievable. And people thinking that the 4% we've got now is great. I've heard up to 11%. The economic growth could be in the 10 or 11% range with the FAIRtax as opposed to the 4 now. And the 4 was a lot better than what we had earlier. So it's going to go there. And I tell you what, we are run flat out of time again. Real quick, hit the logo store one more time.
Yep. Okay.
Real quick.
If you can't live without one of these, you have to go. You have to go to FairtaxLogoStore.org. FairtaxLogoStore.org. All right. Pins, information cards, the prebate cards, and so forth. Hats, shirts, jackets, mugs. I mean, all kinds of FAIRtax gear on there. Buy some gear, show it off, show your support, your visible support for the FAIRtax. Get people to ask questions, and you will help us get it passed, because when people learn about it, that's when then they start demanding it.
Again, we welcome your questions at FAIRtax. The FAIRtax guys welcome your questions. TheFairtaxGuys@gmail.com. And also check us out on our Facebook page. Share this video with your friends and family, and invite them to watch FAIRtax Power Radio on Facebook, and especially on excluded.tv. Check that out. That is really good. We want you to do that. But until we meet again, I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you that the FAIRtax is America's big solution, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Oh, these income tax forms are way too complicated. There's got to be a better way. Who are you?
We're the FAIRtax Guys.
We've got a big solution for you.
What's that?
It's the FAIRtax. Completely eliminates the federal income tax system as we know it. No more withholding, no more payroll taxes, no more tax returns ever, No more IRS. All gone. And I guarantee you, once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Yeah.
We got to get rid